Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I'm very excited. I'm back with another store visit. As I've mentioned in my previous couple of store visit videos, I'm currently, as I'm recording this, on a trip for Christmas in the Christmassiest part of America, according to themselves, Pennsylvania. So we visited a few places, including Christmas City, USA, which is Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. But today, we're going to be talking about a comic book store in Lebanon, Pennsylvania called Double A Comics and Cards. It might be Double A Cards and Comics. I'm not sure. Now, there's two comic book stores in Lebanon. They're on the same street, just to like not very far apart. I don't even know how far apart they are, but it's 3 minutes drive, so they're not very far apart. But they're right there. However, unfortunately, one of them was closed the day that we were in town. It's just the way it goes. So the only one I was able to get to is Double A, and it was a really great store. They had a ton of stuff. They had a bunch of dollar bins. I'm going to show you a couple things I got out of the dollar bins. They had a bunch of long boxes, like lots and lots and lots of long boxes. But they also had in the back, they had silver and bronze age long boxes, probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 of those with some of the good stuff. They had a lot of big books on the wall. They had a lot of really nice like keys, a lot of Silver Age keys, a lot of Bronze Age keys, a lot of cool stuff. And as we'll see at the end, they unexpectedly had something that's not comics related, but is something that I'm a big fan of, that I know some of you will dig as well. That really made everything even better. I even got a little bit of romance here. Now I will say, we got to the store 20 minutes before they closed, so if we had had more time, I would have bought more stuff. As it was, I barely had a chance to go through the dollar bin. I barely had a chance to go through the mystery bin that I'm going to tell you about at the end of the video. So I would have definitely got even more stuff if we had had more time. I just didn't have a lot of time to look around. But it's definitely worth your time to go there. Now, we were driving on our way to Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Chocolate City, USA. I don't know. And it's only about a half hour away. So if you're going through the area, if you're going to be going to Hershey Park for whatever reason, you should definitely stop by in Lebanon because, again, there's two comic book stores there, very close together. And this one, at least, was really cool. Let me start with the dollar bin stuff. So I got 4 books out of the dollar bin. Again, I only had a chance to very quickly flip through them, like literally 5 minutes. So I was going through them as fast as I could, found a couple cool things. There were a bunch more dollar bins that I didn't even get to. But I'm going to start with this here. It's Giant Killer from 1991, first issue of Giant Killer. Now, this is a book that, this is my third copy of this. Second copy that I've gotten out of a dollar bin. I try and pick this up anytime I see it. It's just one of these books that seems like an obvious sort of candidate for adaptation, like into film. It's basically about kaiju, and it's about this character here, the Giant Killer, which is the character here, who's sort of half man and half kaiju, and he's been genetically engineered to fight the kaiju that are destroying America and stuff like that. So again, I always pick these up when I see them. I'm socking them away just in case, for $1 you can't miss. It's just a really cool book, and I don't see it that much. Like, it wasn't exactly sales in 1999 for offbeat miniseries weren't exactly through the ceiling, so it's not like there's a huge print run. So I pick it up whenever I can. And to that point about there not being a big print run, I got something else with this that I've never seen before. And it is Giant Killer A to Z, a field guide to big monsters. Now, I haven't cracked it open yet, but I'm assuming, as it suggests, that it's sort of like a who's who in the kaiju universe sort of thing. One thing that's really interesting about this that I noted is that it has the same cover date. So Giant Killer #1 and this Giant Killer A to Z, they both have a cover date of August 1999. And so I thought it might be wise to pick this one up. It seems to be even more difficult to find than this one. I don't know. For $1, it's a really cool book. Just the cover is really cool. These are by Dan Brereton. So, it's worth $1 for sure. But I don't don't know, why not? Now, there's a couple other things that caught my eye in the dollar bins. This is a book that I'm sure I've seen before, but I've never really clocked, and I know that some of you are going to know all about this. It's called Last of the Vikings from Genesis West. And it's got this cover on it, which is by Jack Kirby. It says Kirby and Thibodeau. Now, the interior, illustrated, colored, and lettered by Michael Thibodeau. And my copy that I got out of the dollar bin here is actually signed by Michael Thibodeau. And the art's cool. You know, it's not bad at all. It's sort of like one of these books it's a fantasy comic, which I like, and it's got this art that's sort of like right on the edge between sort of amateur and pro. It's very detailed. You can see the influences from other, artists. It's well done. It's definitely several cuts above, your usual like 80s indie explosion sort of artwork. What's interesting is that, this is dedicated to Jack and Roz Kirby, and Thibodeau mentions that he's got a whole bunch of covers planned, and they're all like collaborations with like the biggest artists of the day. So for instance, there's an ad in the back. It says next issue, cover by George Perez and Michael Thibodeau. So the only one they had at the store in the dollar bins was this first issue, but it's this interesting Kirby fantasy cover. It looks to me like it's Kirby pencils with Thibodeau inks, perhaps. So for a buck for a Kirby, can't beat that, right? And then finally, the dollar bin, last thing from the dollar bin is this. It is the Marvel's facsimile edition of Tomb of Dracula #1. Now, I had a really nice copy of Tomb of Dracula. It was about a 7.0, and I owned it for about, carry the one, I don't know, 14 years, 13, 14 years, maybe 15. But I sold it a couple years ago. And I love the cover so much. I love the cover design so much. It just looks so cool. It doesn't look quite as cool with the facsimile barcode thing down here. That does kind of mess up the design a bit for me. But since I sold my original, I thought, why not get the facsimile? I'm not really into the facsimile editions. I think they're cool, but I'm not really into them. But for $1, why not? And with a lot of these books, I may end up passing them on. In some of my, every 100 subscribers, I do a giveaway where I give away a big box of comics. And so stuff like this is stuff I might keep for myself. I may end up in one of those because it is really cool. And it's also cool in a way that other people might appreciate more than me. So when I have books that I know other people are going to like more than me, I like to pass them on. So I also like to support the comic store, so I always try and buy stuff, but there's much higher ticket things that I got at this store, so that's not a question here. Because they did have just one or two romance comics, but one of the romance comics they had was actually an older romance comic, which I'm going to show you right now. So here it is. It's Romantic Secrets #11 from Charlton. It's got this cool nurse cover where this guy who's blind has just gotten a letter from his sweetheart. He can't wait to hear what it says, but the nurse can see that it's a Dear John letter. She's dumped him for some other dude while he's recuperating from his horrible injuries. She can't bear to read him the letter. Now, as soon as I saw this, obviously I clocked that from the 10 cents, but also the font with the issue number, that it was pretty early for Charlton romance. You can see there's a arrival date of 2/12 written there, and then after that there's a little bit of scribble. It's 2/12/57. So this came, the cover date, It's not actually on the cover. The publication date is June 1957, but the actual arrival date is February 12, 1957. And it is in pretty decent shape. That's basically where I got it. Finding Charltons from this period in nice condition is hard to do. So if you get a mid-grade Charlton romance book like this is, you should not pass it up. So it was $18, which I think is more than fair. I think it's a very good price. So I'm happy to get that, even though it's a little bit out of my romance wheelhouse. It's pretty close. I do like the Nurses in Love covers and stuff like that. So very happy to get that. But here was sort of my big purchase for the day. And again, it's not comics, but as I was getting ready to check out, I looked over and I saw over there on the floor, underneath some stuff, a box of what was clearly classic vintage Dungeons and Dragons books. And they had some really good deals. Now, I'm hardly an expert on this, but I have bought a couple of these vintage books. And they had stuff like quite nice condition first edition player's handbook from somewhere between 78 and 81. In nice shape was $30. They had a nice Dungeon Master's Guide, also first edition. It was $50. They actually had a couple of the player's handbooks, and they had a bunch of modules from, again, early 80s modules. So we're talking 81, 82, 83. So it's possible that some of them may have been late 70s, but they were clearly that early 80s sort of design, that period, as opposed to the early modules, which are like have black and white covers. Anyway, those are almost all of them were $15 each. And some of them look like they were in quite nice condition. So I thought that was very reasonable, but there's a couple things that I just had to get. And this is in nice shape. It's certainly not mint, but it's very solid, nice condition, and it's a Fiend Folio hardcover, 1981, I think. Everything I got here, this and the other stuff I'm going to show you, there's a copyright date on the front of 1980 on all of them, but all of them also have a copyright on the back of 1981. So I don't know which it is. I don't know if it came out in 80 or 81, but I know 81 there was a lot of stuff coming out from TSR. But for $20 for this in this condition, it seemed like a no-brainer to me. So that was like an instant buy. And then when I was going through, I found some other stuff that has a lot of nostalgia for me. Now, this was something that when I was a kid, I started playing D&D. I think it was in the summer of 1980. It could have been 81, but my memory is that it's 1980. I'm pretty sure it was the summer of 80 when we started playing D&D. This was one of the books that the neighborhood kids had that I played D&D with. But they also had these, or some version of these. It might have been a slightly earlier edition of these, but it's the basic rules that came in the red box. And the expert rules that came in the matching blue box. I have very distinct memories of rolling up characters with the rules from the blue box. I remember this blue book. I remember the dice, and I remember making the characters. And they had the red one too, but we were using the blue. I got very confused when we started using the hardcover books because I didn't understand the difference between basic and expert and advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Didn't really matter. I didn't really understand, or it didn't really matter. But these are books that like have a lot of nostalgia for me. These two, these are $15 each. Again, they're not mint, but they are in pretty nice shape, all things considered. They have regular wear and tear. If they were comic books, which they aren't, because they came with 3-hole punch in them, so that's part of the publishing. If they were comics, I would say the blue is probably mid-grade. I would put the blue book probably at a 6. maybe a 5.5. The red's a little bit rougher, but not too much rougher. That's more of a 4.5 to 5. So I would say, both in the 5 range, give or plus, somewhere between, 5, 5.5. Really nice, solid condition. And again, just so much nostalgia for me with these. And they were $15 each, which I think is a really good deal. I did some quick looking on eBay, and I get the impression that in solid shape like these, they're probably worth about twice that much each. So, obviously no complaints. I think the prices on these were really good, really low. There's a couple other books I wish I'd kind of got now, because I don't really buy these too much. I don't really know what the value is, but when I got, back here to the hotel room, I started looking for some stuff on eBay. That's how I look up the stuff on eBay. Some of the other prices seemed like they were pretty low. Like they had a Tomb of Horrors, was the only module they had there that wasn't 15. It was 25. I'm looking online. I'm seeing them selling regularly for closer, more like 45 to 50 or more, and it seemed across the board like everything was about maybe half of what it might have been. So just really good stuff. So I'm very excited to get these. I do have some really beat up first edition Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's guides, and I considered buying the ones that they had here because they were so much nicer than the ones that I already have. I have a second edition Player's Handbook somewhere as well that I still have from my playing when I was using it back in college in the 90s. But I'm starting to get a little bit of a collection. Had a couple other books, but I think I might have given them away. Somewhere I had the Oriental Adventures book. I don't know what I did with that. But I'm sort of rebuilding, sort of my out of nostalgia, my D&D sets here. So really excited to get all of those. So that was unexpected, but again, just so cool to get them. So that was it for this store. Great store. Again, I would have got a bunch more if we had more time to look around, and I sort of wish I had bought more of the D&D stuff. The one thing I really wanted to get there was Keep on the Borderlands, which they did have, but the one they were having was missing the map. So the cover, the cover of the modules come off and the map is on the inside, and it was missing the cover. So, and it was only $10, whereas the other modules they had with the covers were $15. But, without the cover, I didn't want to get it. But if they had that with the cover, I absolutely would have bought it for $15, no problem. They had Isle of Dread, I almost bought for $15. I decided not to, but a lot of really cool stuff. So if you're in the area, definitely check it out. Anyway, that's it for this time. Let me know what you think of this haul down below, and I'll see you next time.